Hey guys, Brantley here again with 30 Minute Fisherman. Guys, just wanted to talk to you today about, everywhere right now it's fall, or it's getting cooler. We're going into fall. Some places it's colder than others. Where I'm at here in the South, well, obviously today I'm wearing a jacket. So it's really not as cold here as it would be other places, but it's cold for me. It's like this morning it was like 40 degrees. To me that's really cold. Some of you guys, it's probably like 40 degrees, that's not that cold. But anyways, my point is, this time of year, the days are getting shorter. The water is definitely cooling down, and you're going to have the annual shad, with the annual shad migration back into creeks and stuff, and also the annual fish migration back into these creeks and the shallow water and so on and so forth. Because, a lot of times you'll hear this time of year that the fish this time of year act a lot like they do in the spring. There's a lot of similarities between fall fishing and spring fishing, and there is some truth to that. But I think sometimes, what people don't realize is there are similarities, but the main similarity is the fish move shallower, move back up into the creeks and move shallower. But the difference between now and in the springtime is when they move shallow in the spring, it's to spawn. That's the one thing on their minds. Is spawning. This time of year, it's all about the food. I don't like to personify fish a lot of times, but it's just like people. Usually we eat a little bit more once it starts getting cold in the fall of the year and the wintertime and stuff. We usually put on more weight. We usually eat more. It's just the way it is, guys. Same thing for these fish. And literally right now these fish are feeding up for the winter because they know they're going to eat less in the winter. Some people try to even say, I've heard people through the years try to say that fish don't eat in the winter, and that's totally false. They still eat. It's just they're not going to eat as much as they would, say, in the spring, in the summer, when the water temperature is warmer. But believe me, guys, this time of year can be phenomenal. These fish get real aggressive. They just want to eat. That's it. Their main goal is eating. And again, like I said, when I'm out here in the South, the main forage is shad this time of year. And of course, even for me, it depends when I'm fishing. I fish a lot of smaller lakes, ponds, and stuff like that. And a lot of times they don't have shad, but they will have bluegill, possibly shiners, other things they'll be eating. Even crawfish. The crawfish kind of, this time of year are still abundant, and the fish will be eating them too. As far as the bass, smallmouth, either way. But that's the thing. This time of year, these fish are aggressively feeding. It can be an awesome time of year. And sometimes it can be hit and miss because you still have a transition, that's taking place. And another thing that gets, it's hard for a lot of guys to figure out this time of year is these fish actually get real nomadic, I would say. They travel all over the place. But what you really need to do is, find what they're eating. Find the bait fish. If you have shad wherever you're at, find those schools of shad. If you find the schools of shad, you're going to find the fish. If your bass are eating bluegill, find the bluegill. Whatever it is they're eating. If they're chomping on crawfish, which does happen this time of year too, get in the areas where those crawfish are, where they're going to be eating them. And another thing is, guys, I know there's lots of talk this time of year about all the different baits. You'll hear topwaters. Some guys will tell you spinner bait. And, there's all, again, the topwaters, like Zara spooks and poppers and, or any other walking bait besides the Zara spook. There's so many nowadays. But anyway, you hear about all these different baits to fish. A jerk bait, like I said, a spinner bait. Some guys tell you a wacky one, which can be great this time of year. But one of my favorite baits to fish, and a lot of guys will tell you, is a rattle bait. Except for me personally. And again, You're going to hear different things, but what I like to fish, and I find myself fishing more when it comes to rattle baits, is a 1/4 ounce size rattle bait just like this. And if you look at this, I mean, that's the size of a lot of bait fish, okay? Now, there are bigger bait fish this time of year, and I'm not telling you don't fish big baits, okay? You can still catch fish on bigger baits than this. I mean, a lot of people fish a 1/2 ounce, okay, rattle bait this time of year. You know, that could be a rattle trap. This particular bait is the old Excalibur. This is the XR25, you know, 25 standing for the 1/4 ounce, you know. But this is the old Excalibur, and this is an awesome bait. They actually quit making Excalibur, and now I think Booyah makes it or something. I really haven't tried them yet because I just have so much confidence in these Excaliburs, and I've got a bunch of them that I've bought through the years and tried to stockpile because they really work, okay? But that being said, you know, listen to what I said a couple seconds ago. Most people, when you go to buy these rattle traps, rattle baits like this, okay, whether it be the Excalibur, whether it be a rattle trap, whether it be the Strike King Red Eye Shaz, that's another good bait a lot of people fish. Typically what you're going to see on the shelves, what you see people buying, is the 1/2 ounce size. These 1/4 ouncers, a little bit harder to find. You don't usually see them. You kind of have to look for them a little bit harder, or you got to order them, so on and so forth. But, you know, that could be the case, is that, you know, these fish are getting used to seeing so many of these 1/2 ounce baits coming by, and then along comes this 1/4 ounce. And maybe the sound is a little bit different on the smaller bait than the bigger bait. I'm not sure. All I know to tell you is this 1/4 ounce bait has caught tons and tons and tons of fish for me the last, I say 4 or 5 years. I stumbled on this about 5 years ago. I actually went out with a guide, and, you know, he tied one on for me. He said, no, throw this 1/4 ounce. And I was about to tie on a 1/2 ounce. He said, no, you know, throw the 1/4 ounce. And I was like, all right, you know, you're supposed to be the expert, so I'll go with what you're telling me. And it worked, guys. And then from there, it worked so well, you know, I still had one rigged on the rod, and I just figured I'd keep trying it. And I did. And actually, this one I've got here in my hand, just to show you something here. If you look right here on this side, it's one color. And when I flip it around here on the other side, see that chartreuse on it? And on this side, there's none. Well, what has happened, guys, is the paint's been knocked off of it. I've actually taken and painted back over this thing with like clear nail polish, just to try to keep the paint on there. So just a lot of times I do that, just take a clear nail polish and paint over the paint, so to keep it from chipping as bad. But just to let you guys know, this is not a new bait. This is, you know, like I said, see the chartreuse on that side, and there's no chartreuse on this side. That's not a manufacturer mistake. That's just the paint has been knocked off of it. Anyways, that being said, you know, this bait really works. And again, I do use other ones beside this one. This is just my favorite one. But, you know, like I said, the Strike King Red Eye Shad, you can find them in 1/4 ounce. Even the old school rattle traps. Even, you know, I mean, this is a little more higher end bait. But if you want, say, a cheaper bait that doesn't cost as much, you know, you got the Cordell, the old hot spots. So a lot of times around here we call them, but it's a Cordell spot, cotton Cordell. The only thing I would say on the cotton Cordells is they're very inexpensive, but I would change out the hooks. Just saying. You know, it is what it is. I would put some better hooks on there. But anyway, guys, get out here and fish these 1/4 ounce rattle baits. I'm telling you, you will have lots of fun. You will put lots of fish in the boat. And again, you know, it's like I said, it's something, I think possibly it's something different than everybody else is throwing. It may be the size of this bait that is more representative of, you know, a lot of bait fish that the fish are feeding on, because that's actually a pretty good sized meal for a fish anyway. And I mean, you know, guys, I've caught a lot of numbers of fish on this bait, and I've caught some good ones. So anyway, get out here, guys. Throw these baits. One other thing, when you're fishing these baits, do not just throw it out and just reel it in. I mean, every once in a while, or sometimes, these baits are pretty erratic. Even if you're just reeling in, you're going to get that. This thing is going to be, coming through the water. It's going to be making noise. It's going to be, wiggling, shaking back and forth. But you will catch far, far more fish on this bait, adding action to it. And when I say that, when I'm throwing this bait, I throw it out. I let it sink down a little bit. I start reeling it, and then I'll pop it up. I'll take and just, pull it straight up. So this bait is going, it's coming up like that, and then I let it fall. And then I give it some slack, let it fall. Now, you don't want to put too much slack in the line, guys, okay? You want to keep up with that line, okay? And most of the time, I'm fishing this bait on fluorocarbon. 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon, okay? That's what I'm going to throw this on. That being said, like I said, you throw it out there, let it sink, start reeling it, pop it up, let it fall. As soon as it kind of gets back down, reel it, maybe a couple turns on the handle, boom, pop it again. And you can play with the cadence per se, how's it. I usually find myself, I work this thing pretty hard. I'm jerking it, letting it fall. I'm reeling it, boom, boom. I'm getting a workout fishing this thing, but that's what'll catch you fish. And a lot of times that's what'll catch you a bigger fish, because this thing is coming along, boom, boom, and it's falling and it's back up, and it's all of a sudden it's in their face. It's right there at them, and they have to do something. Fish do not have hands; they only have a mouth. And all of a sudden, this thing is in their face, and they bite it, guys. And you will get some thunderous strikes on this thing. They will, they will hit this thing. Another good thing about this particular bait, guys, believe it or not, it's going to work right now from the fall, right on into winter, even early spring. Because again, and even in that colder water, even that early spring, even in the wintertime, you can still fish this bait pretty aggressively. Like I'm saying, you can still pop it up and let it fall on it, because you're going for a reaction. You don't necessarily... Now, you might want to slow down some as the water gets colder. Do not get me wrong. You want to probably chill out a little bit on working it so aggressively. But my point is, you can still fish this bait a lot faster, a lot harder than other baits. You don't necessarily have to sit there and just slow wind it, and like a lot of times you have to do in the winter, because the fish are so lethargic. They're not really going to chase a bait too much in the winter, generally speaking. But then again, like I'm saying, even when it's cold, it's wintertime, this bait falls down in front of them, and it's just falling, and boom, and it pops back up. And then and it does that to them. They can't stand it, guys, I'm telling you. But anyway, guys, get out and try this. These 1/4 ounce rattle baits. Like I said, there's several on the market. Again, this is the Excalibur, the old Excalibur XR25. And like I said, I know Excalibur quit making them, but I know Booyah still has this bait, and I'm pretty sure they have it in a 1/4 ounce size. And like I said, haven't messed with any of the Booyah baits yet, because I still have some of these Excaliburs. Eventually, I'm going to try some just to see if it's the same bait. I really don't know. But anyway, that being said, like I said, you also got, the old school rattle traps. You can get them in 1/4 ounce. The Cotton Cordell spots. The Red Eye Shad. Strike King Red Eye Shad. And I'm sure there's other baits on the market. Okay, that's just the ones that I know I have in my boxes. Okay, that work. That would be my point with that. Because I'm generally speaking, I'm not gonna tell you guys or talk about something that I have not personally used, fish, or have confidence in. That's just the way it is, guys. But anyway, always remember, guys, get out here and enjoy. this great outdoors that the Lord has given us. Get out here and fish these baits. Now is the time. I'm telling you. These little cold fronts are coming through. It's getting cooler, and these fish are they're gonna eat, and it can be a lot of fun. And don't get too frustrated. Guys, you might go out today and you may not catch many, but don't get disheartened. Try and try again. Honestly, because you could have one of the best fishing days of your life this time of year. It could really happen. You can catch some big ones. You can catch a lot of numbers. And like I said, the main thing is find the bait. Find the bait. Whatever that bait is, find it. Once you find the bait, those bass will be there. And listen, a lot of times when it comes to schools of shad, there'll be these huge, enormous schools of shad, and you may not get on the fish too well. You may actually need to move away from some of those bigger schools and find smaller schools, or find little more isolated spots where the fish will be. I'm just telling you that from experience, because yes, I know how frustrating it is when you find a huge school of shad, but there's just so much bait there for the fish to eat. They won't look at this bait or any other bait you're throwing because there's just so many shad. So sometimes you need to get away from those bigger schools of shad, maybe find a smaller school or find a group of shad that's kind of off by itself, I'm just saying, those are just little tricks to try. But anyway, guys, like I said, get out here and enjoy this great outdoors that the Lord has given us. And always remember, this is the day that the Lord has made. So make the best of it. And guys, tight lines. God bless. And I'm out.